We're back in Needham today. The exterior is completely painted. We're actually putting the cherry on top of this home, quite literally. We're at the chimney pot, and then we're gonna head inside and talk about how we're prepping the second floor for paint. And then we're gonna give you a sneak peek at what material has been installing now that we have color on some of this cabinetry. On the exterior, I just want to recap kind of what we have going on. We have a white cedar shingle, which at the manufacturer was actually double dipped into their exterior stain. So that is a stock color. And then above that, we have our brackets that we talked about last week. These are manufactured by Executive Architectural Millwork. So these are PVC and they have been painted. I love the design of them, how they're kept down. But then I want to turn your attention to how the overhang here, which is our soffit, is essentially a darker color. And then we still have a white on the inside there. That white's actually going to be painted a light blue, which is what you see traditionally in some of these porch ceilings. And a lot of you guys commented like, hey, you know, did you know that the blue actually keeps spiders away? Which apparently that's the reason why all of these homes have these light blue porch ceilings. If you look up there, we got our roofers on site, or our sheet metal guys, I should say, and they're actually fabricating the copper cap to that chimney. So we have two fireplaces in this home. One is gas, this one, and then we have a wood burning one on the other side. They go up to these chimneys and they will be exhausted, and we'll actually have a chimney pot, which will be a vertical, essentially stanchion, which will allow that fireplace to exhaust. Coming down to the entryway, we have our concrete slab here. This is prepped for a bluestone patio, which will come out and then step down to a bluestone walkway here. And then our final detail will actually have some columns that come down onto that bluestone. So this door right now is just a piece of styrofoam for our temporary air conditioning, but that door unfortunately came in from the manufacturer at a lesser quality than we were hoping for. We sent it back, and ultimately they had claimed that it was within tolerance, within manufacturer tolerance. So we gave it to our friends at Material Millwork. It's in the shop, and they're actually gonna go through and make sure that this door is fine-tuned and hits the quality that we're looking for. These are the things that, you know, as a builder, we face, and not always something that we're communicating. Certainly not always something we're communicating here on a social channel. But I want to talk about it because, you know, at the end of the day, we are responsible as a builder to make sure that the quality is up to par. And for us, that door, you know, despite the back and forth, we weren't making any progress. We could have, you know, escalated that, but we realized that, hey, we need to get this door in. It needs to be installed. This is part of the project. For us to switch manufacturers, we're going back into the lead time thing. Then we're asking for favors, where the reality is the benefit of having a sister company like Materia. We have the shop, we have the ability and the know-how to fix that door and get it to the quality standard that we're hoping for. So that will get installed here in the next couple weeks. And that door is a beautiful walnut door with an arch top. So working our way around, the grade has been brought up to our rough grade. So from here, we'll have our final loom essentially with the landscape contractor. This is where we kind of turned it over from site guy to landscape contractor. And then just a real quick call attention to the two trees. You can see that the grade has been elevated to the trees. Really important not to bring that grade all the way up to the tree, because then you're burying the bottom part of that tree and essentially making it unhealthy. In this video, the fence does not look like it's in great shape. So we're gonna get our team to clean this up. We had strict instructions not to go in that area. So the reality is we'll probably get in touch with Maltby and have them come out and just put eyes on things, make sure we're in good shape. As we walk around, you'll see that, you know, we still have our window wells. We're going to be detailing that with landscape. We still have our temporary electric going into the window. Super frustrating, but I do believe that Eversource actually was on site last week and pulled in our power so we can make our permanent power switch. And the benefit of that is now we'll be able to run the home's air conditioning systems. We talked about this in a previous episode that we had temporary air conditioning systems running, which works, but ultimately we want to be using the home system. In doing that, it's really important that, number one, you get into a regular cadence of changing those filters. So we'll likely get into like a weekly occurrence of changing any return filters. There's a lot more dust flying through the air under construction than there would be in a permanent home. So we're going to make sure that one of our guys is tasked with changing that filter. And then any of the supply registers that are coming up through the floor, we're going to cover those registers with a ridge cap vent, which is a Cobra ridge vent. It's basically an extruded, expanded mesh plastic, and we'll either cut that to tight fit in, or if it's a subfloor area, we'll just nail that down. And that's going to prevent most of the dust and definitely the debris from falling in. So as we work our way around, we actually had our painter go through and clean up the gas meter with a direct to metal, oftentimes called a DTM paint, to make sure that we didn't have any rust forming on that gas meter. Working our way around the back, this right here where it says no paint, we actually have some ERV exhaust that will be coming out of there. And then if you flip around on this side, we'll have our ERV intake. ERV, Energy Recovery Ventilator. It's essentially pulling the stale air out of the home, exhausting it outside, pulling fresh air from the outside, filtering it, and supplying the home with fresh air. That's gonna run continuously to always make sure that the air inside the home is being exchanged. In terms of HVAC, we have our condenser units on the side of the home here, and if you guys remember a few episodes ago, they were originally going to be here, and our super decided to move them over there because of snow and ice falling down. Didn't want that to be in a impact zone, moved them around there. The landscape has a fence designed to go around it. This right here will be essentially prepped for electrical for future barn, future pool, things like that. Then just, you know, common electrical needs for maybe things like Christmas lights. But our condenser units are here, and I want to, you know, give a shout out to Matt Reisinger, actually introduced me to this product, where it's manufactured by Airex, and this allows that line set to come out in a really clean fashion, comes right out of the house. We have our 2 lines right here, and this is all gasketed. Now this isn't an airtight wall, but it's still a much better detail than oftentimes you see this come through and then just siliconed. This sits all the way back against the sheathing. Before you guys say it, yes, these screws are temporary. These are actually masonry Tapcons. The guys had them available just to hold them in place. So we'll replace those with a wood screw. And then right here, of course, this is starting to rip. Oftentimes you see that. This actually gets a sleeve, and it's what I call a UV sleeve. It will be made out of the same material as this, and this will wrap all the way around back to the machine, and that will protect that insulation from degrading with UV light. Oftentimes, you fast forward 5 years, that insulation fails over time. So a really nice detail to have all of that wrapped in one material. Let's go inside. I want to go up on the 2nd floor where they're prepping for paint. One of the #1 tips I can recommend when you're thinking about getting your painters on site is dedicating the space for them. Years ago, I had a painter price a project, and they weren't over budget, they were just more than I had budgeted. And I asked the question, how do we be more cost effective on this job? And he said, if you can give me the whole house or the whole space, and I'm not interrupted by other trades, I can save you 15%. So that's really our goal, is we want to make sure that this entire 2nd floor is dedicated to the painters. There are people working downstairs, and in an ideal world, we would just leave and the painters would have the whole house. But it's a big house, we can separate things. We actually have our first coat of primer on the baseboard. So you're going to see things like the corner that's not caulked yet. This gets that first coat of primer. It's also all tinted to the final white that we're going to be using. But this allows all of those imperfections to show through. Yes, all the nail holes and stuff have been filled, but this will be that 2nd round. If you look on these windows, it looks like this is almost like painted glass, but this is called liquid mask. So the painters actually come through here and paint all of the glass with a liquid mask product. This is in lieu of using blue painter's tape in every grid. When you have a big painted glass, it probably makes more sense to just tape that big square and then cover the sheet with a sheet paper or plastic. But when you have a bunch of little squares, it can take a long time, and it's a lot faster to use the liquid mask product. You can see, you know, they're continuing this in here. This has not been sprayed. All of the baseboard, you can see how all of the holes have been filled. They've went through and sanded it. I do want to point out the fact that when they're sanding those nail holes, they're not just sanding the nail hole itself. Oftentimes I see people mess this up where they'll just sand just this little area until that's flat, and what happens is you almost can't feel it or see it, but then later on when you paint it, you end up having that area flash. So instead you're gonna have that area sanded and spread out a little bit more. When I say flash point, what I mean is that there could be a divot there, and when the paint dries, you actually will see it reflect differently. So you're essentially, like, that reflection is flashing differently, if that makes sense. So they're doing a good job of making sure everything's prepped. And then what they do is they go into vacuuming this whole room, making sure there's no dust. And then they're gonna come in here with their spray gun and spray all of that baseboard. They are working in here. We'll scoot through here real quick. But you can see they're getting everything prepped in here, getting everything vacuumed, prepped. This is the bunk bed that they've been working on. And this will all get painted in one shot, primed first. Love the fact that they're using Festool. You know, they're a big partner of ours, and they're obviously, watch your back. That's okay. Sorry. So you can see they're spraying this base here, And then down here, they're continuing to do prep. Another thing is that all of the hinges on the doors are getting taped off rather than taking these doors down. I find that this is one of those things that it's kind of means and methods. But I find that if these get removed and the doors get removed and set somewhere else and they go to put them back, depending on who is in charge of putting these hinges back, a lot of these screws end up stripping out. Or the doors get installed and then they need to be adjusted again. And it can be super time consuming and super frustrating. So it looks like they're going through and they're taping the hinge itself. And it looks like they're going to come back and protect that barrel, and they'll paint these doors in place, and that way they can spray one side, spray the other side, and they're not worrying about having that to flipping that door around or misplacing hardware, or worse, stripping that out. So down on the first floor, carpenters are continuing to work in this entryway, wrapping up paneling. We have materials actually making that curved casing for that door, so they'll be manufacturing that off site. I want to talk about or show you guys some of the cabinetry that's been installed here in the kitchen. So we have our coffee station here and our face frames are starting to go in. You can see how some of this stuff is detailed with these panels already pre-built. So our scribe, rather than your traditional scribe being here, this cabinet is left forward, and then our scribe is actually our return panel. And then down here we actually have a furniture style base. So we have that baseboard that will continue all the way around and tie into the house base. Here's another example. This all was manufactured in one piece. We have a scribe here, and then we have a return piece here. Being that it's proud of the wall allows for that baseboard detail to be a lot more intentional. Those are the things that we're gonna look for. You know, right now it looks like that we have a recessed kick, but that's just because our furniture style base, and when I say furniture style base, I mean house base. So essentially the cabinet guys have this Kuiken Brothers profile, which is what we're using throughout the entire home, which is right here. But they've actually manufactured this right here, and this will actually go in front of the cabinetry and return back and die into the house base, but that's painted green. We have, you can see they're still in progress here. This is a more traditional toe kick where you do have a recessed toe kick, but I'll show you what that looks like when it comes all together. Is right here in the pantry, we actually have our almost a leg on either side. What you're looking at here is essentially a sink with a bank of drawers prepped for a dishwasher, and then a bank of drawers again. And that piece of baseboard is continuous all the way across. So when we're thinking about doing this, we want this to be continuous, but it's also removable. So this piece here can actually snap off of our legs that support the cabinetry, allow for that dishwasher to be installed and removed if necessary. But the nice part is that when you stand back and look at it, it looks as though this is one big furniture piece and comes down and drops on a leg on either side. Now this side right here is closer to, say, 1.75 inches, but over here you're about 3 inches. The reason is that we have cabinetry this way, and in fact it's not cabinetry, it's actually paneled appliances. So when our appliances come in here, we're gonna have another filler that ties into this, and then we'll have a nice consistent reveal here, as well as here, and then our appliances that head across. It's nice to see some of the color going in. I know Material is actually chatting about wrapping all this up, but I wanted them to hold off so we could get a couple sneak photos of this beautiful green. But all of this will get wrapped in a foam to protect it, because that's the #1 issue that we run into, is that when this stuff gets installed, it gets damaged. It's just part of being in construction. So whatever we can do to make sure that we're preventing any damage is what we're going to put in place. So all this will get wrapped in some foam, likely some signs that say do not touch, otherwise you're responsible. But great progress on the outside, being that it's complete. Great progress on the inside, that we're on that second floor painting, and then first floor wrapping up carpentry, as well as installing some of this millwork. So stay tuned for another episode next week.